I guess there was absolutely nothing in your lives going on tonight, so that's why you're all here. Right? No, I know that's not the case. Everybody here had other things that they could and maybe even should have been doing, and you made arrangements to sacrifice and to be here, and I appreciate that. It doesn't go unnoticed, and I realize that we all have to make choices, right? With 8 daughters, I understand there's different things going on all the time, and so we have to make choices. And so I hope that what I share with you tonight, when you go home, you say, you know what, that was the right choice. I'm glad I came, and that you got the information you're after. But in order to do that, this is my third meeting in a row. I did one in Kansas City, and then last night in Denver, and then here we are in Arizona. And one of the things that I have done each of the nights, and it's worked pretty well, so I'd like to do it again tonight, is to find out what got you here tonight. So if there's a specific question or a concern or something you want to know more about, and that's why you came, I want to make sure we get it down on a list. So I've asked Jen if she would keep a list. And what I found is most of it gets covered in the prepared materials anyway. But at the end, if there's something that I haven't covered, we want to make sure that we cover it. So I'm going to start out by just saying, if there was something burning that got you here tonight that you're saying, I need this answer, and if this is taken care of, it's a success, right? It was worth coming. So let's create this list. Go ahead and raise your hand and shout them out. Yes.
Well, for me, I'm new to Wakaya from Innovative. Just learning what products to take and when and how, and everybody seems to take them different. So just wanted to get a little more input on that.
Okay, great. Excellent.
I'd like to know what's different from our turmeric and ginger than others. Like
Okay.
Jennifer was talking about how it didn't work for her husband over the counter.
Very good. Yeah.
I'm just really.
Okay, excellent. We will definitely cover the GT core. I'm going to turn my ringer off.
I know.
Yes.
Well, for me, I was discussing my many issues with someone, and he suggested that I come out to this event tonight, and maybe you guys could answer some questions. As I was looking at the little wheel over here, I need detoxification. I feel like a walking bottle of Keto. Inflammation, that's my main problem. Digestion is wrapped up in there somewhere. Nutrition just. So
Okay.
I'm just waiting to see if you can touch anything.
So we're going to cover each of those, and if there's some things at the end that you still have questions about, we can handle them as a group, or if you want to sit down and talk even personally about some of them, we can.
Okay. Oh, and keto.
And keto. Yes.
I'm just here with Stacy, but I was asking kind of like out, social media world, just about the things I've been hearing about CBD oil and just kind of how it works and what it's for and
Great.
just anything.
You have that down on the list too, Jen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yes.
I'm here because I just want to learn everything I can. I haven't been on it that long, and I just want to know all about it.
Okay.
She's on my challenge team.
Fantastic. Excellent. Okay, well, hopefully we will give you a lot of information tonight. But if there's something that comes up, specifically, let us know. We'll add it to the list. Was there a hand anywhere else? Yeah.
I want to know more about the company's goals for what the company's vision is for our product line, and what makes us special compared to everyone else.
Okay, great. Excellent. Yes.
Jen's my sister. That's why.
He is so honest. That's my mom back there too.
That's a good reason. Not really for me, it'd be inflammation.
Okay. Any others?
That's the type of family we have. Okay.
Okay. Well, just if something else comes up or a burning question, don't hesitate to interrupt me, right? Just say, hey, can we add something to the list? And Jen will be ready to write that down. So, but I want to make sure that you go home with the information you came here for. And we do have a prepared presentation, and I'll cover that material, but I'm more than happy to go off in the weeds if we need to, okay? This is not, I'm not one of those where I say this is what it has to be and there do we part. No, if you want to go off in a different topic, and it's something that's going to benefit all of us, we'll do that, okay? And again, if you have some questions that might be personal or you want to wait, I'll stick around as long as Susan doesn't kick me out to answer any of your questions. At the
I'm
end.
an empty nester now. You can stay as long as you want. There's no bedtimes.
Let me tell you a little bit of my background, just so that you understand where I'm coming from. I was in my first year of law school when I was introduced to this industry, and the reason I was introduced to the industry is because my wife and I, after 3 years of trying to have children, and you know, we've been borrowing every penny we could in student loans and everything to pay for treatments. We finally found out that we were going to have a baby, and we went to the hospital for the ultrasound, and the technician was doing the ultrasound, and he said, "Okay, can you see that?" And I mean, raise your hand if you can understand those ultrasound screens. My goodness, I look at that thing and I just, anyway. But I didn't want to be not inclusive or whatever and be a part of it. And so he says, "Do you see that there?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I see it, you know." And he says, "And there's the other one, you know." And I'm thinking, okay, I didn't know if he was talking about feet or if he was talking about hands or, you know, because, you know, then he said, "And there's the third one." And I'm like, "Third one? What do we have 3 of?" You know, maybe there's a problem, right? If there's 3 of something. And then he stopped and he said, "The doctor told you were having multiples, right?" And my wife and I, our jaws dropped. We didn't say anything. He said, "I'll go get the doctor," right? And the technician went out and came in and brought the doctor. And the doctor let us know that we were having triplets. And we were very excited. We like I say, for 3 years we've been trying to be able to start a family, and so we were ecstatic. But as the reality of having 3 at once, when we've never had any, we started to get a little nervous because you all of a sudden have to get 3 of everything, right? And you know, being a student, and I had a full-time job. My wife had a full-time job. Her job had to go away because she went on bed rest. And when they were born a little bit premature, as you know, oftentimes happens with multiples. They came home on those wonderful monitors that go off all night, you know, you're all panicked. And so as we were going through that, it became very apparent to me that I was not going to be able to be full-time in school and keep my full-time job because I needed to be home more. Especially feeding times and bath times, they were more than one person could do. And so I was looking for something that I could do to make some money at home. And my plan was to quit my job and stay in school. And I won't bore you with that story, but if I quit school, they wouldn't have let me back into the program. It was one of those kind of deals. So I decided to stay in the program, but I had to find some other way to generate some income. And I had looked at some different things. There was like home medical billing and some different ideas. And I took them up to Idaho, where I grew up, where my parents still live, and I ran these ideas by my dad. I said, "Dad, what do you think about this? And what do you think about this one? And what do you think about this idea?" And he said, "Todd, those all sound like they'd be okay." But he said, "I wonder," he said, "have you ever thought about doing network marketing?" And I said, "I have no idea what it is. I thought maybe it's computer networking or something." I mean, I didn't know what he was talking about. I said, "Not really." He said, "Well, your mom and I haven't either, but we've always bought products through these companies. They always have fantastic products." But he said, "I have some friends and some family members who have done it, and they've done very well." And he said, "I think your personality would do well. I think you could really do well. It's something that is flexible, you do from home." I said, "Okay, what do you recommend?" And then he put me on to some health products. Now, I knew nothing about health. I knew nothing about the industry. I told you I didn't even know what the term was, right? And so I started very, very fresh, very amateur. And one of the things I realized early on is that I needed somebody who knew a lot about health and knew a lot about network marketing to make my job easier and help me out. And so I recruited a friend who I had met as a freshman in college. And some of you might get a chance to meet him. His name is Blake Graham. He is the chairman of our health advisory board at Wakaya. And the guy is extremely knowledgeable. He had, at that time, about 6 years experience in the industry, but he's a studier and a researcher, and he loves health, and he is amazing. And at that time, he had 6 years experience. You know, now I think he's 35 years in the area of health and wellness, and a really, really knowledgeable guy. Well, he helped me succeed. And we worked together as partners, and so for 19 years, that's what we did. We would meet with people that had questions or health challenges. They were looking for, to get off medications. They're looking to get rid of illnesses, and we would help them through nutrition to do that. And for 19 years, we had amazing success doing that. We built a large organization of people who had really seen amazing results with their health. Well, some things started to happen that we weren't quite getting the same results that we had been doing in the past. It was getting a little bit harder and harder. And even people who had gotten results were not able to maintain them. They were starting to fall back. And so we found ourselves having to tell people, well, then take more, well, then take more, well, then take more. And pretty soon we're loading people on so much nutrition that it was actually having a little bit of a contraindication. Do you know what that is? Mm-hmm. That's actually where something, the opposite of what you're trying to accomplish is happening, okay? And so we were running into something, and pardon my language here, but we were running into something called BNF disease. Have you ever heard of that? It's belching and farting disease, right? It's where your digestive system is really struggling to break down all that nutrition. And people that were having results before, we were having to give them more and more and more over those 19, 20 years, and we still were struggling to really help people with their health. And I was looking for some solutions to this. I was looking for doing something different. And I was introduced to a gentleman, David Gilmore, who's the founder of our company, who had an experience himself. He's a multi-millionaire, billionaire actually. He's a multi-serial entrepreneur, and he started a number of different companies that you can read about. But one you might remember or be familiar with is Fiji Water. That one's probably the one he's most popular for. But Intercontinental Hotels is a big one. He had the largest gold mining operation in the world. So a number of big companies. And he was invited to speak on a panel, an American Express luxury panel. This was in Florida. And it was a series of days, and they had a number of speakers, and he was the final one. And as they went through these days, the idea was, or the topic for the conference was to identify what life's greatest luxury was. So what would we consider to be life's greatest luxury? And they had talked about, things that you could own, like airplanes or vehicles and cars, or resorts or spas or properties. And they'd gone through all of this thing, and they had finally come to kind of a conclusion that life's greatest luxury was time. That it's a limited resource. We only have so much time, and that to be in control of your time, choosing what you do and when, was the greatest luxury in life. And then Mr. Gilmore stood up as the final speaker, and I can't remember if he tore up his notes or threw them away, but he said, I completely disagree with the direction of this. He said, what good is your time and being in control of your time if you don't have the health to enjoy it? In fact, he said, your own health is your greatest luxury in life. What good is your wealth, your possessions, and even your time if you don't have your health? And if you think about that, there's a lot of truth to that statement, isn't there? Because you could have all the time in the world, but if you're miserable and you're not able to enjoy any of that time, then the time actually becomes a burden, doesn't it? I mean, I don't know how many of you have ever met with somebody who was so miserable that they actually wished the time would go away, that they could end it, right? And so this paints a whole different picture then And sometimes the very thing that is the greatest luxury and perhaps one of the most important things in our life is one of the things we think the least about. We don't necessarily make certain decisions. We make decisions every day, but we don't necessarily make them in accordance with how important perhaps some of these things are. So here's another quote. Real estate portfolios, gold mines, and electronics, these are businesses that he was in, right, cannot compare to the power of tangibly improving the health and the wealth of the people we serve. So in addition to helping with people's health, he also knew that certain ways to help ourselves, we had to have resources to do that too, right? Some of these things, ginger and turmeric, for example, they aren't something that you just get for free. Okay, that you have to have some resources in order to acquire them. And so if you can help somebody be able to tangibly improve their lives and their health and help them with the means to do it, that's a wonderful, wonderful quest and a purpose in life. And that is why he started this company, and this is why he says that Wakaya Perfection will be the biggest of all of his startups, of all of his businesses. And he's got some big businesses. And the reason he says it'll be the biggest because of the difference that it makes in people's lives. So with that as kind of a background, I want to jump in now to something that might be a little bit shocking to you. Okay, the first time I was introduced to these, and these were shared with me, my jaw hit the floor, figuratively. But because I have been in the health and wellness industry for 23 years. And these statistics are what has happened to the health of the people of our country in the last 20 years. And I thought we were doing better. In fact, do you think that people are buying more organic today than they were 20 years ago or less? More. Do you think people have more awareness with regards to avoiding some of the foods that might be high in sugar and things? Do you have more awareness today or less? More. Do you think that people are perhaps taking more supplements today or less than they were 20 years ago? I agree. So I thought we were making progress. I mean, I really thought that the efforts that we and a whole bunch of people have been putting in over the last 2 decades was making a difference. Well, let me share a few things with you. Sorry. The last 20 years have been the worst with regards to the health of Americans than any period of 20-year period in history. With all the awareness, with all the increase of making better choices. I mean, you go to the restaurants, you look at the menus now, they have a healthy fare, right? They have choices you can make that are actually supposed to be healthier for you. We didn't have that 20 years ago. These are all new things. The trend is healthier food. And yet, we have an alarming increase of disease that has happened just in the last 2 decades. 41% increase in deaths due to heart disease. Just in the last 20 years. We're not talking about, since the 50s or the 40s or the 30s. From 1990 to 2013, 41% increase in deaths due to heart disease. Now, what have we done for heart disease in the last 20 years? We've been told what to eat and what not to eat, right? They've been telling us to avoid our eggs. They've been telling us to avoid fat, eat low fat. They've been telling us to use vegetable oil, right, instead of butter. They've got all sorts of cholesterol-lowering medications. People are testing their cholesterol. All these. We've worked pretty hard on heart disease over the last 20 years. And yet we're at 41% with regards to the ultimate measure of heart disease, and that is people who die from it. 45% increase in asthma. So what have we done for asthma treatments in the last 20 years?
Medications.
Yeah, we've got asthma centers now, right? Most schools are now equipped with albuterol and puffers and things like that to help because we became aware of it. I remember when I was a kid, I knew maybe one person that had asthma, and now it's all around us, right? 45% increase in asthma. Why? What's causing this? We have to start asking that question. Why would asthma increase? A 50% increase in inflammatory bowel disease. This is digestive disorders like celiac, Crohn's, IBS, ulcerative colitis. 50% increase just in that 20-year period. And that's even less than 20 years. That's what, 16 years. In 16 years, 50% increase. Again, has anyone else told you about these statistics? Have you heard them on the news? Is the government sending out awareness campaigns? Are we hearing about this from our medical practitioners and things? No, these things are happening right under our nose and we don't even know about it. I didn't know about any of these statistics until Blake brought them to my attention. It's pretty shocking, isn't it? 50% increase in these digestive problems, and nobody's talking about it. Nobody's talking about the asthma. Nobody's talking about the heart disease. How about a 50% increase in food allergies? Have you seen this one?
Yep. Southwest Airlines doing peanuts.
Yeah, so all of a sudden, the allergies have hit such a chronic level that the schools don't have any peanut butter in them, the airlines don't have peanuts on them anymore, right? And there's a whole bunch of other things like dairy products and things like that now people are all of a sudden sensitive to. Again, when I was in elementary school and junior high, I can't even remember somebody who had allergies. I'm sure there might have been one or two, but it was a small number. This now, I mean, how many of you know somebody that has a food allergy? Yeah, it's pretty regular. But who's talking about it? How about this one? 250%. That means for every person that had epilepsy in 1990, right? For every person that had epilepsy in 1990, we now have 2.5 more. 2.5 times as many people with epilepsy in just those 25 years. Why? What's happening? Why isn't this on? Why isn't this on the news? Why aren't we hearing this? Why aren't we getting something? Telling us, hey, be careful, beware of this, watch out for this, because people are getting epilepsy. We have 2.5 people for every one that had it, 25 years ago. And I'm not making these statistics up. You know that. You've seen on the bottom. These are coming from World Health Organization, Center of Disease Control. These are statistics that are published by third-party organizations that keep track of this thing. How many of you have known somebody or cared for somebody that had epilepsy? It's difficult, isn't it? This is something that really changes a person's life. It changes their ability to participate in life the way that others do that don't have epilepsy. And being someone around them and caring for them, you have to take a lot of precautions and be prepared, right? This requires a village, right? At least a family to help take care of somebody. So this doesn't just impact those people, but it impacts their family. It impacts their classroom at school. It impacts the community. It impacts the church. It impacts whatever that person is a part of. And we have a rapidly increasing occurrence of it. And nobody's talking about what we can do about it or why it's happening. 3 times as many diabetics as we had in 1990. Now, those of you who know about diabetes, this is not a pleasant disease. It starts out very quiet, doesn't it? It's almost silent. You don't even know unless you check your blood. But then, over time, untreated, it just gets worse and worse and starts to really affect the quality of life for that individual, for their family, and the people around. This also has a huge impact on the cost of medicine. They actually project that this disease alone could be the thing that bankrupts our medical system in our nation. Because this rate of increase adds so much expense to the medical. When diabetes gets progressed, the medical costs just skyrocket. And so they're projecting that could actually be the thing that bankrupts us, is diabetes. because we've got 3 times as many diabetics today as we had 20 years ago. Now, again, I know I'm saying the same thing and repeating myself, but who is telling us about this? I mean, this is published at pubmed.gov. That's a government publication that goes and publishes these things. That's where doctors and scientists and things look for these types of statistics and studies and things. But yet, I mean, this should be something that's shaking the rooftops for us, right? Somebody should be out in the streets telling us this is a problem. And yet we just go on living our lives, and yet people are suffering. Well, this one had applied to my wife and I way back in 1996. That was when our triplets were born, right? To help with fertility clinic. 3 times as many people require the help of fertility treatments in order to conceive. Why? I mean, are we not as good at it as we used to be? I don't think that's the case. I don't think that we've forgotten the techniques, right? There's something happening. There's something happening on the female and the male side to where the chemistry isn't working. Now, again, where do we go to hear this kind of thing? Susan's house. Because this isn't out there. But these fertility clinics are making big money off this, right? They got 3 times as many people to take care of today as they did in 1996. This one's shocking. This one's shocking. Because Alzheimer's doesn't just affect the individual. It affects the whole family. It affects the family all the way down to the grandchildren, doesn't it? You know, because they go to see grandma or go to see grandpa and they don't know who they are. You know, it used to be that older generation were around to help us with these grandkids. Do you know that there are more and more people who are getting Alzheimer's in their 50s? It's starting much, much earlier than it used to. 783%. That's almost 8 times as many people. Yes.
I just read an article that said that all the companies that had been doing experimental tests on drugs and things to help Alzheimer's, none of them helped, so they've all decided not to pursue that any longer.
Yeah, this is a really frightening one. 40 years ago, this disease didn't even exist. You never heard of it, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't even given a name until about 40 years ago. That was the first time they started to say, hey, we've got this condition, we're going to call it Alzheimer's. 40 years. What do we got here? Help me with the math. 19 years? No. 24. 24, thank you. 24 years, we've gone up almost 8 times, 783%. Very, very scary. And anyone who's been around a family member or friend that was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, you know what I'm talking about. This is a hard one, and it lingers for a very, very long time. It changes the entire plan of the family to care for this person. Just to put this in perspective, that's 42 times, folks. So, in the 1990s, if you had one person, right, I think it was 50,000 people or something like that had autism. Today it's 1 in 59. That means 1 on every street. This is one of those curves that's doing this. Right? I mean, this is an exponential growth. Why? Why? What's the answer? Why is this happening? And what can we do about it?
Is this all nutrition going wrong?
It's definitely part of it.
I mean, the
Yes.
choices, that we make, we feed kids instant instead of crock pot,
from the dirt, no
Yeah,
hormone.
we're gonna talk about what's caused this, because it starts to get a little scary, doesn't it? We start to get a little upset, and that's why this tour that we've been doing this last week, and we're gonna continue to do this, we call this sounding the alarm. Because somebody's gotta sound this alarm, somebody's gotta start an awareness campaign and let people know that this is happening right under our noses and nobody's addressing it. And why do you think that nobody's addressing it?
Because doctors get paid to keep us sick.
We do have a system that makes more money when we're sick. That's true. But there's also more to it. Why isn't anyone sounding this alarm?
Is it true that this is predominantly in the United States and not in other countries?
We lead the pack in these statistics, yes.
Okay, why? Why?
I appreciate you saying why. Because these statistics should get us, they should beg the question where we say why. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. I'm not claiming to have all the answers, but I'm going to share some things with you that you might not have heard before. And when we start to put these pieces together in a puzzle, we start to see that there's a problem. And we start to think about we need to do something about it.
Is there autism in that extreme in other countries, in the European countries?
It is increasing pretty much across the world, but more in the industrial nations than in the undeveloped nations.
Is it because they want to give too many inoculations in one shot? Because I know when we were kids, we did one inoculation per shot, okay, for one disease. Now they're putting 5 in one or 8 in one or something. They're giving these poor little children multiple inoculations in one shot. I think that is horrendous. I think the immune system does not know what to do with it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to stand here and share because there isn't a study that actually backs that up. However, you're right. That is something that has changed in the last 20 years is that we have really stepped up our immunizations and we've stepped them up in a very, very rapid way in numbers. So
The veterinarians want you to take your animal in every year and get the same shots over and over and over. The animals don't even live as long as we do. They only need one set of shots their whole life, okay? But the veterinarians want us to take our animals in every year and get these multiple shots, and your animals are dying early.
yeah. So there could be a tie to some of this to that. I don't know, right? But I am sensitive to that. I know with my children, we do each one individually, just in case, right?
Yep.
Any other thoughts?
Toxins that they're spraying on our food constantly.
GMOs?
The soil has no nutrients.
I know that when we were at the conference, I mean, I was just really shocked about the statistics from the Japanese that came over, how they're declining.
Their population,
Their
is shrinking.
population is actually declining, and their biggest thing that they noticed it was from the food that the United States is sending to them. That it is causing infertility problems, and it was from our food. I know that when we went to Europe last year, I didn't have any problems like in Ireland with all the food I ate. It was awesome. It was fresh. It didn't have any GMOs in it. It was just completely different.
Okay.
It was
Very
different,
good.
taste different. Yeah.
So we have a right, yes.
I think it's the preservatives in our food. We do not have fresh markets, okay, on the street corners for fresh food for kids to eat. In the school, on the playgrounds, I see kids bring a package of potato chips and a can of pop that they're for breakfast. That's what they eat on the playground instead of an apple or an orange.
Very good. So we have, based on these statistics, we have a rising tide of disease, don't we? We have an incredible increase in these diseases, and they're plaguing us, and if we think that we can avoid it and it's not going to happen to you, you're mistaken. Because these statistics, I mean, it's going to play out. If we do what everyone else is doing and expect a different outcome, then, that's the definition of insanity, right? So the reason for being here tonight is to share with you some information. and also for us to share information with one another, and hopefully we go out of here with some knowledge that we can then put into action. That's when it becomes wisdom, right? Is when we actually take better action, we do better steps, we actually change things. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the things that we feel are impacting and causing this increase of disease. We're going to use the acronym of Rising Tide, okay, to help explain this. The first one was already mentioned, it's toxins. Now when we say toxins, we're not talking just about the air we breathe, but we're also talking about the water we drink. We're talking about the food we eat. We're talking about the things we put on our body, right? All of these things have chemicals in them. They have toxins in them. And our bodies are designed and given the ability to identify toxins, isolate them, and then eliminate them. We have systems in our body that do that, okay? Because even the natural processes of breaking down food and creating energy, our body creates these byproducts which are toxic to the body, and our body has to eliminate them. It's a natural process. There's also things called pathogens, right? Bacterias and viruses and things like that the body is naturally exposed to. They're all around us. We can't avoid them. We can sometimes use better personal care and avoid some of them, right? But we're going to be exposed to them. Our kids are going to go to school. They're going to high-five somebody on the soccer field. We're going to have the spread of bacteria, the spread of virus, the spread of pathogens, or the spread of toxins. It's going to happen. So how do we survive in an environment that we can try and limit, but we cannot limit this fully? So how do we survive in an area and in a situation where this is a given?
Build our immune system better.
We have to empower our body with tools to help the body be more efficient in its ability to say, hey, that's a harmful thing, isolate it, right? Whether it's done by the immune system, whether it's done by other nutrients, right? Because every antioxidants, for example, are helpful in eliminating toxins. So we have to give our body tools and have it operating at this higher level so that when it's exposed to these toxins and these pathogens, the body can get rid of them, okay? So that's one we have to do. Another one, and this was brought up by this young lady in the back about inflammation, right? Inflammation is called the silent killer. And in fact, if you were to read in a lot of the literature today, they believe that inflammation is the underlying cause of all chronic disease, okay? Not acute disease, not an infection or things like that, but chronic disease, heart disease, Alzheimer's, all of these diseases we were talking about, right? Arthritis, all of these, inflammation is at the underlying core of the chronic disease. Now, why is that? How does inflammation relate to this situation? What is inflammation?
Irritation.
It's just constant stress.
Anybody ever sprained an ankle, twisted an ankle? Right? What happened?
Broken an ankle.
What happened?
I broke my fibia.
Broke your fibia. And what happened immediately after you broke it?
It went,
It swelled up, right?
really, yeah,
It became inflamed.
yeah.
Okay? So what is that process? What causes that?
The body's trying to cure it,
Trying to isolate it, kind of.
Trying to isolate it initially, right? The inflammation is where the immune system is saying something's wrong here, right? There's a problem here, there's an infection, there's a break, there's a process that isn't working right, something isn't right, and so it tries to seal it in and isolate it so that if there's an infection or whatever, it's not going to spread everywhere. Same thing, I mean, it's kind of, you can think of it as a venomous bite from a spider or a snake, right? Body swells up, it tries to swell and keep it isolated in that area. When it inflames, you don't have blood flow going in and out. The blood just sits there, right? And that way it can keep it stable. It doesn't want you using your foot, right? The body says something's wrong with it, I don't want you using it, so it inflames it, it makes it hurt, and it tries to keep it to where you're not going to put any weight on it, right? Until it can figure out what's wrong and then rebuild it or fix it. That's what inflammation is. And so inflammation is a good natural response. However, if you know what it is, right, you break the foot, what did the doctor tell you to do?
The doctor said, stay off of it, elevate.
And put
this cast on.
Ice.
And was there something?
Put ice.
And ice. Okay. So
Sorry. She was saying ice, but I wanted to say myself.
so why elevate? Why does the doctor want you to elevate it?
Get the blood.
That's right. Get the blood so it'll flow down, bring that swelling down, put ice on it, cool it down, right? That will bring some of that, get the blood flow going in there again, and so that your body can bring nutrients in and fix the problem. They even have anti-inflammatories, right? Ibuprofen and things. That the purpose is to bring that inflammation down. So the body is creating an inflammatory response because it's worried. It doesn't know what to do about it. And then we are countering it by trying to take that inflammation down. So this is fine. This is a natural process if it's happening acutely, right? Something happens, boom, it swells. Okay, we take it down. Now the body can heal it. Where it becomes a problem is when it's systemic and it's chronic, right? You get inflammation everywhere. And isn't that what you mentioned to us, ma'am? That the inflammation is happening everywhere, right? And it's chronic, right? It's not like it's there a day and then it's gone the next, or there a few days and gone the next, but it's constantly there. What's inflammation of the cardiovascular disease, the cardiovascular system? It's heart disease. What's inflammation of the nervous system? Multiple sclerosis, right? What's inflammation of your muscular system? Lupus, right? I mean, these are all, what's inflammation of your joints? Arthritis. What's inflammation of the brain? Alzheimer's, dementia, okay? So inflammation means that this particular area is being isolated, the flow of nutrients isn't getting into it, and the body is doing that because there is something wrong. There's something missing, there's something not working, there's something that is infected, there's something that is, been invaded. And so inflammation, chronic inflammation, becomes the crux of all of these other health conditions. Does that make sense? So one of the steps in healing is to reduce inflammation. Because if we can bring the inflammation down and we can bring in nutrition, then the body can go to work. Okay, next one down here is digestion. We have an onslaught of digestive problems. We've got everything from people having the allergies to the sensitivities to the irritable bowel you go down the list and digestion has been attacked. What's the problem with that? Inflammation can affect digestion, absolutely. And what's the problem if digestion isn't working?
Your body doesn't give you nutrients.
Our bodies are designed to get almost all of our nutrition through our digestive system. A little bit will go in, through topically, vitamin D. The body can make vitamin D if you're out in the sun, right? There's a few of these rare exceptions. But for the human animal gets its nutrition by eating it, right? We have to consume it. The body then breaks it down into the compound nutrients and things, and that is then what is used to rebuild and maintain. So if this digestive system is impaired, compromised, and not working, well, we can't get anything in, right? And so this becomes absolutely important. And then the last one, which is linked to it, is that there are particular nutrients that we know are essential for life, okay? These are nutrients that the body cannot make itself. So they have to be consumed. And if you don't consume them, you're going to get sick. Now, the problem is, you could be consuming them, and if your digestive system is inflamed, or you're overloaded in toxins, right, they don't do any good. And so you end up having to take more and more and more to try and get some level of result because such a small percentage is actually getting into your blood. So this is a problem. Now, let's add to, yeah.
You know,
Bless
what
you.
you're talking about right now, so this is kind of funny, but it's not funny, but a year and a half ago, I had done some routine tests. And there were 3 areas that came up bad on me, and I was so shocked. I'd never even heard of them. One was I was overhydrated. They actually told me I drank too much water. The other was I was malnourished, and there was one other one. And I was also like 30 pounds heavier, so it wasn't like I was initiated malnourished. No, I was malnourished because I was drinking too much water, and also my digestive tract was so off. I was washing anything I ate right out my body. And my digestion was so messed up, I wasn't even absorbing any kind of nutrition. And I was also off on my vitamin D and just something else. And I didn't even know you could be off on those. Like, who drinks too much water? And you're told you drink too much water in Arizona. And so it was really odd for me. But I just had blood work done like a month ago, and it was all great. And all of those levels were fine, but I just thought it was really odd. So I know for me, before I started all the ginger and turmeric and then eventually into keto, my digestion was really off.
Yeah, and this is not uncommon for one or more of these things to be plaguing people, right? So let me share with you a couple of things from a farm boy out of Idaho, because that's where I grew up. And I grew up on 120 acres, okay? And there's some things that have changed in Idaho. And this is just to give you some ideas of what has happened to our food in our country, okay? So when I was a kid, the farmers were either potato farmers, it was Idaho, potato farmers or grain farmers. They had a few corn, right? So those were the 3 main crops. Potatoes was number 1, but there were also grain farmers and corn farmers, and those were the majority of what the fields were in Idaho. But one field could only be one of those crops per year. You couldn't grow corn, potatoes, and wheat on the same piece of dirt in the same year. Why?
Different nutrients in the ground.
So yeah, so you could rotate them year after year, but in the same year, you could not grow all 3. Why? On the same piece of dirt.
Take some nutrients out of the soil.
But even more than that, the growing season isn't long enough, right? In Idaho, we get a winter. So winter comes in and kills everything. So from spring to fall is the growing season. And corn takes the entire growing season. Wheat takes the entire growing season. Potatoes take the entire growing season. So a farmer had to decide, okay, what am I going to grow in this field? And they had to choose between one. They could not grow all 3. Today they can grow all 3. They can grow corn, potatoes, and wheat on the same piece of dirt in the same year. Any idea why? Because the chemical companies have figured out a way to make a modified seed that will grow in colder temperatures. They figured out how to make a modified seed that has a shorter growing season. And so you've heard of bumper crops, you've heard of spring wheat, you've heard of fall corn, so you can actually plant an early winter wheat, get it all the way to harvest, pull it out, plant your potatoes, and they have systems now where we can get these to harvest faster, get them out of the ground, get the potatoes in, get them to harvest, to ripen faster and harvest faster, and then still get a winter corn or a fall corn in. And that's because they've modified the seed, right? They've hybridized it, genetically modified it so that it grows faster. It has a higher sugar content, so it's sweeter, tastes better. We put it in our mouth, oh, that's good sweet corn, right? And they figured out how that it can grow in colder temperatures, it can grow with less water, and they figured out how to make them herbicide, I don't want to say the brand, herbicide resistant. So they don't have to weed these fields anymore. See, it used to be that when you planted wheat, what else grew up with the wheat? Yeah, you've heard of wheat and tares, right? Tares are the weeds that grow up with it. It just looks like grass. You can't tell the difference until it comes to age and ripens, and the wheat will have grain kernels on the top weighing it down, and the grass won't. okay? But you can't tell in the beginning because you go to pull if you go pull the weeds out, you're gonna pull the grain right out with it. Okay, so farmers would only get a certain percentage of yield out of their crop because a certain amount of the space, the water, the nutrients and things were getting used up by the weeds. But you genetically modify that seed so that it's resistant to the herbicide. Now you can spray the entire field multiple times and it kills off all the weeds, and that leaves more space for the wheat, right? So the wheat gets more water, more sunshine, more nutrients, and you grow more wheat. Increases the yields, the productivity on the field. Same thing with the corn. They've got a herbicide-resistant corn, so you can kill all the weeds in there. Same thing with the potatoes. Now here's another thing that you can do. You just take that, they're herbicide-resistant, but they have a different herbicide that you can spray right around the time you want to harvest. You spray the entire field, and what happens is it creates a winter kill. So normally with potatoes, for example, you don't harvest the potatoes until after the first frost. Because the first frost comes in, it tells the plants they need to go dormant, and you know the winter's coming, and so all of a sudden those plants send all of the nutrients down into their roots, into the potatoes, and the potatoes will grow more in that last week or two than they did the entire part of the season. They'll like double in size during that winter kill. So what do we do with chemicals now? We can create a winter kill. We go and we spray it, and the plants die, and what do? They send everything they have down into those roots. And so with all the nutrients and things that they have, what also goes down into those roots? Herbicides, that's right. And the same thing with wheat. See, one of the problems with wheat is the whole field doesn't ripen and come of age at the same time. So you've got some where the kernels are ready, and you've got some where they're not. And farmers are always trying to say, I don't want it to be too ripe, I don't want it to be too green. And they wait until they think it's just right so they can get the most out of the field. Well, now with these sprays, they can spray that field, and the whole thing ripens at the same time, bumps up their percentages, their ratio. They get a whole lot higher crop production out of it. Same is true with peas, same is true with beans, same is true with soy, right? Soybeans. This is what has happened in our country, is that through chemical manufacturing, we've developed seeds that are resistant to our herbicides and our pesticides. You know, we don't have to, used to be you had to go and put nets over strawberries, right? Used to be you had to, weed the strawberries. We don't have to do that anymore. We have the ability to spray that entire strawberry field and keep all the pests off of them and keep the weeds out of them, okay? So, wonderful, wonderful thing. I mean, if you're talking about profitability in agriculture, this is wonderful. The challenge is they never considered a couple of things. One thing they didn't consider was, what about these chemicals? What about these glyphosates and things that are now really, really high in the fruits, the vegetables, the roots that we're putting into our food system? What about the fact that when you make a winter wheat, that now it contains a much higher amount of lectins? You want to learn something, go Google lectin, L-E-C-T-I-N. Much, much higher amount of lectin and a lower amount of minerals. And it's much, much more difficult for our body to digest. So the new wheat is harder for our body to break down. And it contains less nutrients. Now the other thing is, this was what was mentioned at the beginning, our soil is kind of designed to regenerate. Right? The way that nutrients, minerals especially, are brought into the plant is it has to have a certain bacteria content in the soil to break those minerals down so the plants can take them up. And the farmers don't want to leave the field fallow. They don't want to wait. That's losing money, right? So they developed chemical fertilizers that they can till into the soil that will give the plants what they need to grow quickly and be robust and produce fruit. But they don't get any nutrition. None of the minerals are then finding their way into the fruits and vegetables because this chemical fertilizer only has 3 minerals in it. NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. So that's all that's needed in order to produce a lot. But nobody went and said, well, what about the other 58 or 57 essential minerals that are now no longer in the food? What do these chemicals do to us? what do the decrease in the nutrition, what does that do to us? And what does the increased difficulty in digestion do to us? These are things that were never really considered because everything was gone in the direction of profitability. We've also generated seeds now that generate fruit and produce that can be picked green, and then we can put them in an enclosed area and pipe in chemicals that will cause them to ripen, so that we can pick them green, ship them to a location, and ripen them right before we put them in the grocery store. Artificially ripen them. Yeah. So this is what has happened to our food system without us really knowing, right? And as was mentioned, no one else in the world will take our corn, our wheat, our soy. We can't even sell it. It's illegal for anyone to buy it in Europe.
Yeah.
They can't buy our wheat, our corn, or our soy. Asia won't buy our stuff. Okay? The only way we get rid of our surplus now is that we give it away to Africa and so forth. So this is something that's happened without us knowing. We have more access to more food than we've ever had before. I mean, you go to Costco and everything's in season all year. It seems like, right? I mean, and remember, it used to be the only time you got fresh pineapple was when somebody went to Hawaii and brought some back. Now you can get fresh pineapple all year round. Okay? And part of that is transportation improvements, but the other part of it is that they can pick pineapple green now. And they can ship it on a boat over here. And then they can ripen it with chemicals before we get it. So there's amazing things and breakthroughs scientifically that they've done. But we are all the guinea pigs of that project. Okay? It's now, those statistics that we've got, that's now telling us some of the unintended consequences of these science projects, and we have been basically the guinea pigs in this experiment. So, what do we do about it? Okay, and I'm just telling you a few. There's a whole bunch more that I'm sure I don't know about, and you probably do. But this is our food supply today is different than it used to be. And what can we do about that? Wakaya is designed, the purpose of our company, come on up front. Okay. The purpose of Wakaya Perfection is to empower our body, to give us tools to be able to fight against this, right? To be able to be empowered to improve digestion, to reduce inflammation, to help eliminate toxins, and make sure we get a highly usable and absorbable form of those essential nutrients. You were asking about some of the uniqueness about our turmeric. Turmeric in general is amazing, but when it's grown organically from an ancient seed, right, that doesn't exist anywhere else, it hasn't been adulterated or hybridized or changed, because that's what's happened to the ancient roots, is they've been hybridized for flavor and taste and color over the centuries. And so Mr. Gilmore identified one of the ancient roots that had been growing in the jungle and learned how and put together the system of hand cultivating and hand growing. They leave it fallow, 1 year in between, both on the ginger and the turmeric. 100% organic. They don't do any irrigating, so there's no root rot. It's just whatever rainfall there is on the island. And they grow the ginger and the turmeric right next to each other. And it turns out that they are synergistic in that they produce an aroma that fights the pests for each other. This was something they just found by happenstance. He had planted one paddock in ginger and another paddock next to it in turmeric, and they had pests and animals and stuff eating all of it except for the two lines that were touching each other. And so now they plant them one or the other, right? Then the animals don't want to go in there. The deer don't go in and eat it. The pests don't come in and eat it because the aromas of the plants protect each other. It's really an amazing thing. Lots of wonderful things about turmeric, and I encourage you to go on and study it. I mean, there's over 10,000 scientific studies that have been done about the health benefits of turmeric. and our turmeric is extremely unique. It's more potent, and we don't even know when we study and we look at the laboratory results and we see that we have 16 or 17 more curcuminoids than any turmeric we know on the market. We don't know what they do. You've heard of curcumin. Well, curcumin is only one of those curcuminoids, and most turmeric in the market has a lot of that one and maybe a small fraction of a couple more. Ours has high potent levels of all 16, 17 curcuminoids. And we don't know what they do because the research has all been done on that one. Okay? So there's lots of things that nature provides us that we don't really know what they do. But we do know that the one that all the research has been done is all about this anti-inflammatory type response. Ginger's been used for centuries to help with all sorts of things, everything from detoxification, cold and flu symptoms, and nausea, to supporting digestion. This is the one naturally occurring ingredient we know of that actually helps to repair and rebuild the digestive system. So when you've had damage to your digestive system, maybe the little villi, you're familiar with those little carpet-like fibers that are all throughout our intestines, that are the things that actually absorb nutrients, and when our digestive system gets inflamed, they all die off. And ginger actually has the ability to help rebuild and regrow those that natural flora and the natural villi in the intestine. So it's a wonderful, wonderful ingredient. Supports a whole bunch of healthy things. So I'll give you just a second and kind of look through there. But these are the basis of what we've used to build up our GT core. GT is kind of a cool term because we put it on a car and it means it's high performance, right? Mustang GT, it means it's going to go fast, it means it's going to perform well. But it also, for us, stands for ginger and turmeric. And our ginger and turmeric are high performance, much more potent than anything in the marketplace, and really, really make a difference. So the GT core is a collection of products that focus on those 4 areas that we talked about. The 4 areas that are plaguing us all. And I'll just repeat them again. We're overloaded with toxins, and so we're going to give the body the tools to help identify intelligently what is a toxin and what's not, and eliminate it. We're going to give the body the things it needs to help support healthy digestion. We're going to help reduce the inflammation, and then give the body all of the known essential nutrients. Okay, so that's what the GT core is going to do. And so this is part of the GT core. It's the essentials pack. It's a little pack with the pills already in there that you can just tear off, and you're getting all of these on a daily basis. And then I think I have a picture of. I'll come back to these in just a second. Somewhere there's a picture. Well, maybe not. Okay. But it's 2 drinks, and then the packet of pills. And so you mix up the Sport and Go and the Daily Detox. Now it's right behind me, thank you. So you're mixing up these in your water, and then you're taking your packet of pills. And that is the GT core. And it is doing amazing things for people. We are so excited about it. And I actually feel so excited about it because I've been doing this for 23 years. And I've never seen the level of results and the maintenance of those results so easily and so across the board. It's happening in everybody. Also, the Bulafit program is something that is commonly added to the core. And one of the things that is so interesting is people will do anything for weight loss, but they won't do it for their health, right? And so this actually becomes something that brings a lot of new people into the company, and then they learn about the core. Because we're all concerned about how we look, right? And so we want to do this. But the Bulafit program is actually not a weight loss program. I don't know if you knew that. But the keto diet is actually not a weight loss diet. The keto diet started as a health diet. If you go and jump into the scientific literature and you look up a diet that's recommended for epileptics, they call it the epilepsy diet. It's a high-fat, low-carb, medium-protein diet. If you look up the multiple sclerosis diet, the MS diet, right? And you say, this is what the medical community is recommending for MS patients. It's a high-fat, low-carb, medium-protein diet. If you look at rheumatoid arthritis diet in the scientific journal, and you read into it, they'll say, cut the carbs, increase the fat, and medium protein. And that's across the board. I mean, you name a disease, and you go and try to find the diet that the medical community has recommended for that disease, it will be the keto diet. So it's not a weight loss diet. That's a side effect. Okay? The losing weight is a side effect of getting healthy. It's a health diet. And the reason that it's a health diet is because it is an anti-inflammatory diet. So we talked about inflammation and how it's the crux for all of these chronic diseases. If you can reduce inflammation with the anti-inflammatory or keto diet, then everything improves. Do you see why doctors have been recommending that diet for years? Because it works. You bring down the inflammatory response, and all of a sudden some of the symptomology of the different diseases are reduced. So in addition to the GT Core, we strongly recommend the lifestyle that we don't even call it keto, because keto has been a little bit adulterated. You know, people are just saying, hey, drink these BHB salts and you'll be in ketosis. Well, it's a trick way of trying to trick your body about being in ketosis, but it's more of a tool to help you get into ketosis, right? Those BHB salts. Keto, when it's done right, is a lifestyle. And it's not just the percentages of your macronutrients. It actually includes hydrating properly, getting a little bit of exercise, sleeping an adequate amount, and getting all of your essential nutrients and eating the right percentages of macros. And so when people say, oh, you have a weight loss program, we do, right? But it's really a health program. Because if you're losing the weight healthily, then you're going to be able to keep it off, right? And you're going to feel good in the process. How many of you have ever known somebody that lost a lot of weight, but they actually looked or felt worse, right? There are programs where you can lose weight. It's called starvation, right? You can lose weight, but it doesn't mean you're getting healthy. So the program that we endorse and we recommend is really, the basis of it is the GT Core, and then you're adding to it the areas that I just mentioned in the BulaFit program. And one of the neat things about the BulaFit program is that we have a system around it. Some of you mentioned you were on the BulaFit challenge teams, right? So every 90 days or so, we will start a new challenge. And that helps us, gives us a community to work with, right? Check in, gives us a checklist every day. Did I drink my water? Did I get enough sleep? Did I get my core? Did I follow the program? You know, all of those types. Did I get some exercise? And we get to do it with people. In fact, my mom joined the challenge. Erin Taylor up in Boise. Nice. They ran into each other at a soccer game, and she recruited my mom onto her challenge team. My mom didn't even know she was in Wakaya. She said, sure, Erin, I'll do it with you. And then my mom says, do you know Erin Taylor? I said, yeah, I know Erin Taylor. It's really cool. So it's a wonderful way to help and give support and community and even recognition and awards as part of this program. So this is just to illustrate what I told you. The BulaFit program doesn't just help support healthy weight loss, okay? It helps support all of these things. And that's why Dr. Lundell is so excited about the keto diet, because whatever you come into his office or talk to him about or you have a challenge with, the BulaFit program is going to help with it. And so it's part of the program if you truly want to get healthy. And we've got amazing stories. We've had a couple shared already here tonight. So there were some questions asked about some of our other products. I'll just mention them. The core is our foundation. If you want to lose weight, we encourage BulaFit be added to the core, that you follow the BulaFit program. If you're wanting some amazing skincare and you're wanting to bring down inflammation on your skin, the Talay line is an anti-inflammatory skincare program. The Cherish is an anti-inflammatory ladies program, okay? If you're not familiar with this is a sanitary napkin. I'm going to show you a little video in a second, and it's a 5-second video. That's all you need in order to understand the benefit of Cherish. CBD, that was one of the things on the list, right? To talk for just a second about CBD. So, how many of you have tried CBD? Okay. So CBD is derived, at least our CBD is derived from the hemp plant. The hemp plant has been a regulated item for, I don't know how many years now, long time, because of its similarity in appearance to the marijuana plant. And so to ease the regulation, to make it easier to regulate, they outlawed both. And the reason is because in the marijuana plant there's a number of active ingredients, one of them being THC. If you're familiar with THC, that is the part that creates the high or the hallucinogenic effect, okay? And the hemp plant naturally has far, far less THC in it than does the marijuana plant. But because of the similar appearance, it was much easier to just outlaw both and regulate both. And so the hemp, although there's many great uses for hemp. I mean, there's hemp clothing, there's hemp ropes, there's hemp paper, there's hemp building products. I mean, you can make a lot out of hemp. It is one of those in the U.S. that has been outlawed until just recently. Just in the last year, the Farm Bill was changed, and they allow now the agricultural production and the growing of hemp. That has opened the doors now to all of the different uses of hemp, including the CBD, the CBD extract. CBD is the main anti-inflammatory ingredient, both in marijuana and in hemp, and it has an amazing anti-inflammatory response in the body. I've been very, very successful in helping people with insomnia. I've been very, very successful in helping people with anxiety or depression, or just being able to calm down, right? It's a very, very powerful, but yet almost no side effects. We don't. The side effects that can occur are only if you were to like drink an entire bottle, right? So it's very, very safe and almost no toxicity. So it's a wonderful thing to now have access to. A couple drops under the tongue absolutely has changed a lot of people's lives, and it's been able to replace what they were having to use opioids and narcotics and things for. Now they can do it with this natural compound that has no addictive nature, it has no side effects. So there's lots of CBD in the market now, right? I mean, it's everywhere. If you jump online, everybody is talking about CBD. It's very, very a hot product right now. When we decided to enter the marketplace, and we were somewhat hesitant because of all of the chaos, and we wanted to make sure that we weren't going to put anything in the market that would have any negativity to the reputation, that we wouldn't have any of our ambassadors or distributors that could get into legal issues, because there still are some of the old laws on the books in different states, right? Just because the federal government has changed the laws, those only apply to interstate commerce, where it's going over state lines, but states still have their rights to regulate intrastate, okay? So there are still a number of states, I think there's like 5 states, that still have on their books laws regulating the sale of CBD. And so those, I believe, in time will change. There's a lot of discussion. In fact, the FDA and the FTC held a conference just a week ago trying to give some clearness, to this between these states. So we can sell out of Utah. It's legal, okay? And Utah is not one of those states that has a regulation over it, and we're able to sell it in the state and across the borders to any other state. So everyone can order it, everyone has access to it. But if you live in a state where you still have some state laws that regulate you selling it, you don't want to be selling it yourself, right? You want them to go and buy it from the company and have it shipped to them so that they don't have any legal issues. We don't believe, nobody's ended up in jail, long term over this or anything. But there was an incident in Florida, I don't know if you heard about that, where a lady had CBD as an older lady. She was taking CBD for her hip, was helping her a great deal with her arthritis and problems, sciatica. She had a bottle of it in her purse. You know, when you go through Disney World, they inspect your bag, right? This inspector, you know, was less informed, we'll just say it that way. He freaked out over it, and she did end up spending the day in jail until the sheriff came down and said this is ridiculous. But just so you know, there are still, until all of the laws get changed, you could still, there are some people who are less informed, right? It's a kind of an up and coming thing. But as far as what we are doing, we sell a 100% hemp derived, and it's a CBD isolate. And what that means is we take the extract that comes from the hemp plant and we spin off everything that is not CBD. So there's no other naturally occurring things. And someone who sells a full spectrum, they might actually try and tell you that those other things are good for you. And there might be some benefits to them, but that's where you end up with some of these potential issues, right? So we chose to go with the 100% CBD isolate. So we have no other ingredients other than CBD, which is what has been legalized. And it has 100%, we can guarantee there is no THC in it. Whereas, you know, in some of the others, there's going to be a minimal amount of THC. You can't get it all out unless you do an isolate. So anyway, that's a little bit about ours, and the testimonials from it have been wonderful.
Yeah. Do we have testing available on our website?
Yeah, so if you go on the website, each batch of the CBD isolate is tested by 3 different facilities, and that testing is posted on the website. And they're third-party facilities that do it. Okay, so we have a bunch of other products that are amazing in their own right, but please remember that they all work better with the core. Because I mean, you can do wonders for your skin, but your skin is also being fed from the inside. So you need to take care of the inside too, not just topically, right? And that kind of applies to everything that we do. Okay, here's the video. You ready? Steve Schultz shrunk this down to 5 seconds. So we've got this is the Cherish. We've got the leading brand here, and we've got our brand here.
That's
there you go.
awesome.
We don't have to say anything else, right? So, for some people, this is an uncomfortable topic. I have 8 daughters, so I'm invested very heavily in this industry. But the bottom line is that we have a better mousetrap, right? We have a better product that will keep you drier, more comfortable, less toxins. We don't have any of the bad chemicals. The leading brands are filled with all sorts of byproducts and chemicals. Ours isn't. And as you can imagine, with all the other discussion we've had, toxins that we breathe, toxins we drink, toxins we eat, and toxins we put on our body, and especially when they have a direct access to our blood system, right? These are things we need to avoid. So, from a business standpoint, and there wasn't anybody that asked more about the business, so we're going to go quickly here because you didn't put that down on the list. But these all represent different sizes of industries, okay? And if you add them all together, it becomes a big, big number. And the whole idea of this industry is Mr. Gilmore realized when he first produced his ginger and turmeric, he took them to the contacts that he had. The products were in Bloomingdale's, they were in Saks, they were in Neiman Marcus, they were in Harrods of London. This is where he introduced the products first. He introduced them to all of the top celebrity chefs around the country, and they were widely used. I mean, Oprah had it on her list of favorite things 2 different years. That was the exposure that happened initially. When I met Mr. Gilmore, he said to me, Todd, my dream of this company was to really make a difference in people's health. And I can't do that unless we reach lots and lots of people. And I'm not going to reach them through Neiman Marcus. He says that's a narrow market. But he says the problem is, in those high-end retail, I have trained salespeople. that they know what the product is. They'll tell them that it comes from the private island, that it's hand cultivated, that it's organic. They'll tell them all about it. He says, if I take it and put it in a Walmart, because he had these contracts on his desk, if I put it in a Walmart or a Costco or a Sam's Club or even a health food store, he says, in today's world, Rite Aid or a Walgreens, they'll just sit on the shelf next to the other gingers or the other turmerics, and no one will, you even ask the person working there and they'll say, well, I don't know, right? And so what happens is you just choose what the price, right? Because you don't know, if you don't have the information. And so when I met him and he told me about what he had and about the production and about the island and about the ginger and turmeric, I said, my goodness, you need direct sales. You need network marketing. And he said, yeah, I believe that's true. This product is perfect for that because people use it, they have results, they share their story with people, and he said it would be fantastic. But he said to do that requires putting together an entire team of people. And he says, I don't want to do that. And I said, well, I can help you. And so I started doing kind of some consulting work with them and giving them advice because I'd been in the industry for 20 years at that time. I said, you're going to need to do this, and we were talking about it. And then he came back to me and he said, why don't you just do this? Why don't you just do it? You put together the team. You introduce these products, my babies, to the marketplace. And he said, that way, the people who are sharing the message will get what I'm paying right now for advertising. What he has to pay, in the previous model, what he was paying for shelf space, what he was paying for promotion, what he was paying for advertising, you take that budget and you put it into a compensation program to pay the people who are spreading the message. And that's what we have. We have a program of a high-end product that has been in the marketplace. It's proven itself in high-end retail. It did very, very well. But because that wasn't the purpose of it, the purpose of it was to reach the masses, we introduced it in direct sales. And rather than paying any advertisers or promoters in the media, what we do is we have a system where every person who shares the message is compensated for having brought the company a customer. We call it a thank you card, but it's one you can deposit, right? And we all do this every day anyway. I mean, how many of you have ever watched a movie that you liked and you told somebody about it, and then they went and watched it? And did the actors or the actresses or the movie theater or anybody ever send you a thank you card? No. Did they say, hey, you brought us a whole bunch of people, let me cut you in on this? No. How about a restaurant? How many of you have eaten at a restaurant you really liked and you told someone about it and they went and ate there, right? Read a good book. How many of you have downloaded something off Audible and listened to it and said, man, that was great, and you told someone about it and then downloaded it off Audible? Or you picked up a song off of iTunes and then you told someone about it and they downloaded it. We do this anyway. When we find something good that helps us, we share good with the people we care about. The program here is that the distribution model actually passes through us rather than through a retailer or some other media source for advertising. So I think I'm going to skip through some of this side of it. We can talk about that down the road. This is just some examples. Some people ask for hypotheticals, right? Of how does a person get rewarded? Our average family order, we call it a custom order. Our average custom order is around 150, okay, 160. And so we use that kind of as a measuring stick. How many, if an average family is buying about 150, what does a person earn if they refer them? And off of 150, the average person, the referral will earn $30. So then our goal is to get people to earning $1,000 a month as quickly as we can. For about 20 customers, you're going to have a monthly residual of $600. For about 34, you're going to have a monthly residual of about $1,000. And this is a program where everybody who loves the products refers people who also love the products, and then we have what's called a rewards program where you get free products yourself. And you can take this money and use it for whatever you want, but you can also use it to get more products for more family members, right? So And then there's some scenarios of, okay, what if everybody talked to 4 people? What if everybody talked to 5 people? What if everybody talked to 6 people? And we can get into that. But this is a group of people who really enjoy being together. We want to do life together. And so we're coming up on our 3rd cruise in March. We're excited about that. We take over the ship when we go on these cruises. But in addition to trying to get healthy and celebrating everybody as we do this, as we lose weight, as we get healthy, as we grow in the business, we also try to give our distributors the recognition that maybe they're not getting elsewhere in their life, whether it's at work or at home or wherever, that people can feel appreciated, that they feel like they're having success and they're growing and developing. And we create a culture where everybody is giving back and everybody is helping one another. And I absolutely love it when we have our events. We just came off of our convention a few weeks ago, and it was fun. It was really fun being together and recognizing that we have a purpose, that there are so many people suffering. The diseases are growing at this astronomical rate, but we have a solution. And it's absolutely amazing. We don't treat any specific disease, okay? We're not here to treat any one of those statistics that I put on there. We're not here to treat autism. We're not here to treat diabetes. That's not who we are. What we are doing and what our products are designed to do is to give the body the tools it needs to heal itself. And so when the body has those tools, then it goes to work on whatever it is the person needs. And the body does the work. And that's really how our bodies were designed to function anyway. And so, very, very excited about that. So, whoever it was that invited you here, I hope you get back with them. But can we check that list over, Jen, and see what we missed?
Can you hand me that notebook, Dad? We did that. Okay, good.
We covered them? Any that are still standing, any questions or concerns or something that you say, I need this before I can go home? Okay. Yeah.
I had some concerns from people that drink milk or don't drink milk with the milk derivative in our diet. Can you give me a little more information?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things with dairy, there's a lot of people that have sensitivities to dairy. What we found is usually that sensitivity is not actually to the dairy, it's to how the dairy is pasteurized or processed. But there are people that have like a deficiency of lactase, right? So they can't break down the lactose, the milk sugar. And so we have actually products that have the lactase in them, like the Bio, right? That has lactase to help break that down. With regards to the shake, the Keto Fuel, with regards to that product, we've gone to actually a dairy in New Zealand that is an organic dairy, and their cows are fed on organic grass. They're grass-fed only in New Zealand. And we found that it has much reduced occurrence of allergic response or sensitivities. And so it wouldn't surprise me at all if somebody who has sensitivities to milk or dairy products, when they try the fuel, they won't have the same response, just because it's so.
My husband, Scott, was lactose, and he has absolutely no problem now on any of it after he cleaned out his digestive system.
Yeah, it's true. Awesome. Yeah, so a lot of it has
And
to
he
do
makes
with where
really
you
good
source
ice
your
cream.
ingredients, right? Because ingredients are different, and we all know that. When you're gonna bake something, there's difference in ingredients, isn't there, Jen? Yes.
I have a testimony about actually the Cherish product.
Yeah.
And I'm weird, I know. I had a hysterectomy in 2012, so I don't need those products, right? Or so I thought. I work at Bath and Body, and I'm on my feet for 5 to 6 hours a day. I put the panty liners in my shoes, and it has decreased my back pain to almost none.
That's cool.
You can ask her. I used to go to the grocery store after work, and I was bent over the cart like I was 80 years old. And now I just fly to the grocery store after work.
So one of the things that's in there is an ion strip.
Yeah.
An ion strip is designed to help pull toxins out, and it's also it's designed to help reduce inflammation. And so, you know, I'm not gonna claim that that's gonna happen, but I've heard that story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I am absolutely amazed by it, and I feel amazing when I get off work. You know, I don't feel like, oh, I need to quit this job because I'm in so much pain.
Yeah.
So.
No, you'll be amazed at how many people actually have those in their shoes.
Yeah. I've been handing them out to everybody.
It also reduces foot odor.
Yes.
So that's,
I've
you know,
heard that too.
and you know, because a lot of that happens because we get
Put 'em in
sweatier
Jonathan's
voice,
football.
right? And it pulls that moisture out, keeps it dry, the ion strip removes the bacteria. Anyway, so, any other questions, comments? Yeah.
No, it's kind of a question there. CBD oil.
Yeah.
I use that I use the cream for arthritis. It works fantastic. My wife used the roller ball on the bottom of her feet when she's doing security and on her feet for 15 hours a day. She comes home, puts the roller ball there, and CBD oil within 5-10 minutes of pain. It is that fast.
Yeah, it's amazing. In fact, I can share a couple of stories. You know, people who are working trade shows, they're on their feet for a long time, right? And then usually it's like a concrete floor. They will, at night, before they go to bed, they'll put either the rollerball or the cream or both, right? Or even the Ruru cream on at night. And then the next day, they have like, you know, no pain, even though they're standing on the concrete floors for so long. So there's a lot of things we can do, you know, that sometimes we don't even think about. Any other questions or comments? Yes?
Do you think that would work on my feet? They're still numb from my surgery that I had on my back.
I definitely think I would if I were you, I would try the peppermint oil and the Ruru cream.
I don't have either one of those right now.
Susan does.
Because what we're trying to do is we're trying to fire up those nerves again, right? Because you've lost feeling.
Yeah.
So we want to fire up those nerves, and peppermint oil stimulates that nervous reaction. So, you know, which is a positive. And then the Ruru cream becomes the carrier that gets that heat into the nerves. So I would try that.
I will. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right.